In a library known for its difficulty, these titles are said to be the toughest games the NES has to offer. But you can't believe everything you hear. Let's find out if these games truly are NES-Hard. I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Always have. But I should clarify that I mean these Ninja Turtles. And these. Not so much these. These are okay, I guess. These yes. These no. Get out of here. Kids of the 60s can brag all they want about the moon landing, but my generation had something possibly even more pivotal. The release of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. And of course there were the toys. I had all of them as a kid. That is, up until they started running out of ideas and coming out with stupid stuff like this. I don't actively collect toys, but I always keep an eye out for action figures that Mark Ninja Turtle figures are much easier to find than, say, Transformers or original Star Wars figures. But it's another matter entirely to find them with. I hardly ever see any Turtles with their belt, let alone their weapons. Look at this, I have two splinters and neither one of them has his robe. I'm amazed that this Shredder still has his cape. I've always been partial to the soft-headed figures from the early days. They eventually went to these hard plastic heads, which I guess are better quality, but I still prefer the old squishy heads. Naturally, video games were part of the Ninja Turtles commercial blitzkrieg. There were a dozen or so games released based on the original Turtle series, but I really only experienced a few of them as a kid. The arcade game, the first two Game Boy games, and of course, the original NES game. The arrival of Ninja Turtles on the NES was actually a pretty big event. Now, I don't know if I compare it to the moon landing, that'd be a little hyperbolic, I think. But it would go on to be among the best-selling third-party titles on the console. And in Europe, it was even bundled with the NES in an effort to stimulate console sales. Only there, they were called the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I don't even know where I got this. I'd show it to you, but European games don't work on North American consoles. I don't know, probably something to do with the metric system. This was another one of those games that everyone either owned or had a friend who did. When it first came out, I had to fight with just about every other kid in town for the opportunity to rent this game from our local VHS rental store. And when I finally was able to rent it for the weekend, it didn't disappoint. It had great graphics and awesome music, a lot of variety, and come on, it was the Turtles in video game form. So imagine my surprise when I became aware sometime in the early 2000s that Ninja Turtles had a reputation for being a bad game. I honestly don't know. Maybe it's because of the fact that its connection to the cartoon or the comics was a little tenuous. It got the broad strokes right, I guess. I mean, it had Splinter and the Turtles, and Shredder and the Foot Clan, and April O'Neil, and Bebop and Rocksteady, the Technodrome, and I guess those are Mousers. But it also has these fire guys, chainsaw dudes, these flying dragon head guys, and I don't know, a pirate? Most of the enemies in this game seem like they're from a different game entirely. And don't forget about the ending. That didn't happen, by the way. That's not canon. Except no one ever actually saw the ending because the game was too damn hard. Well, you tell me, how hard would you say this game is? Well, to be fair, Ninja Turtles isn't exactly consistently difficult. In fact, other than some awkward jumping mechanics, it's actually a pretty average experience, challenge-wise, for the most part. However, the game is punctuated by several unexpectedly severe difficulty spikes, which unfortunately exacerbates some of the lesser issues in the game, which up to that point had only been a nuisance. For example, in most games, when you take damage, one of two things is likely to happen. You'll either lose a life, or you'll be knocked back uncontrollably. If you're lucky, the developers will have programmed in a period of invincibility to give you a few seconds to get your act together. Crafty players quickly learn that they can use these iframes to damage boost through obstacles. However, the invincibility period in Ninja Turtles is extremely brief. Too short to damage boost through much, really. So when you are sluggishly making your way through an underwater maze, fighting against invisible currents and awkward water physics, it's very easy to get caught in a wall of electrified seaweed and lose half your health bar before you're able to swim to safety. Because underwater, there is no knockback when you take damage, you just keep taking damage. It's important to remember that all 4 turtles have their own life bar, and you can switch between them at any point in the game. When one of them gets too close to death, you can swap them out with a turtle who has more health. The problem is, once you start doing this, you really need to make sure you can finish the stage. Let me break it down for you how quickly things can go from bad to worse in this game. At full health, each turtle's life bar is 8 units long. Being able to freely switch to one of the other 3 turtles essentially extends your life bar to 32 units. You got to the top of the dam losing just 9 hit points. Not bad. However, you were careless during the underwater section and you didn't change out Michelangelo fast enough. On your second attempt, you changed out Raphael with a single hit point remaining, and then Donatello died. Got caught. You took a combined total of 18 units of damage in this area alone, and now you have to start over from the beginning with just 2.5 hit points. Yes, but if it's any consolation, there are no other stages like it in the game. Stage 3 is as far as I ever got as a kid. This returns to the structure of the first stage with a large overworld map dotted by a number of sub-level entrances. The map is very maze-like, and you need to explore the various buildings and sewers not just to find your way forward, but also to find these missile power-ups for the turtle van, which are the only way to destroy these barricades that block your path. This highlights one of the other main issues in the game. It's almost impossible to avoid taking damage. Only about half of these sub-levels are necessary to go into, but they are all crawling with enemies. Every action sequence is essentially a slog through an endless barrage of bad guys, and it's only a matter of time before the damage they inflict outpaces your forward progress. Oh, and by the way, you only get 2 continues. After that, it's just game over. Had enough? How would you rate this game's difficulty now? Okay, how would you rate the frustration level? Yes, Paco, I have beaten this game. Once. But it just so happens that that one time was, well, the big one. This deathless playthrough was the end result of a week or 2 of practice. And while I'm not too modest to say that a degree of skill was involved, I'll freely admit that an extraordinary amount of luck was a factor as well. I'm going to elaborate on both of those in a bit, but first, there's a few basics. Firstly, all 4 turtles are essentially the same. They all run at the same speed, they jump at the same height. The only way they differ is through their offensive capabilities, and each one is useful in his own way. Leonardo is the best all-around fighter, as he has good reach, and his forward slash covers a broad area that can hit anything in front of him, regardless of how high or low it is. Donatello is a powerhouse fighter with exceptional reach to his forward bow strike, which also hits behind him, although it's a very slow attack with a narrow range that leaves him open to high and low attacks. Raphael and Michelangelo pretty much suck, but they make excellent cannon fodder. Use them to soak up damage and buy yourself some time to get to the next pizza. You can, however, give Raphael and Michelangelo some degree of usefulness by equipping them with the limited-use ranged weapons like ninja stars and boomerangs. The best of these by far is the scroll, which launches a devastatingly powerful wave of ninja energy. It cuts through enemies and is indispensable in the later stages. This is how you beat the game. My strategy was to use Raphael to collect all the scrolls I came across, and then use Michelangelo to take hits for me when one of the useful turtles was close to death. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that every 25th enemy you destroy has a chance to drop a sub-weapon. And while some of these are more useful than others, none of them are as good as the scroll. Can you keep a constant tally of every bad guy you kill in the game? Neither can I. Too many times I have accidentally downgraded one of my sub-weapons because I was surprised by a drop. This is the main reason to give your most powerful weapon to a turtle you hardly ever use. My other strategy was just to keep a mental log of the max health pizzas scattered about the game. For some reason, the tougher spots in this game were a lot more manageable when I knew exactly when the next opportunity to refill my health was going to be. Something I should mention about all the items that appear designated points, they respawn when you leave and re-enter a stage. So if you find a pizza right by a stage entrance, you can keep leaving and coming back to refill everyone's life bars. This is a good way to stock up on scrolls too. One more thing to mention is that the turtles get a power boost when they get low on health. If you are brave enough to allow the turtles to linger in the lower half of their health bars, you'll find that cutting through the enemy hordes is a lot easier. When speaking of this game's difficulty, most people seem to generally agree that the bomb hunting sequence is the point where the game becomes impossible. However, once you know where all the bombs are, this section really isn't hard to complete. Honestly, I think making this jump on the first try is harder than the entirety of the underwater section. I know the countdown is stressful, but you have plenty of time to get through the stage. You don't even have to be that careful about avoiding damage. Use Raphael and Michelangelo, and remember to switch them out when they get low on health. Stage 3 is full of buildings and sewers for you to explore, but you really only need to visit a few of them. Your first stop should be in this building to collect the missile power-up Turtle Van. With a bit of persistence, you can save time here by clipping through this platform next to the missiles. Be sure to grab these pizzas on the way out. This isn't a necessary stop, but I always detour through these buildings to collect the scroll weapon for Raphael. Remember that you can leave and re-enter the building to respawn the scroll if you want to stock up. And I usually grab the other full pizza in the sewers that connects the two buildings, and then jump into the water to warp back to the street. If you lost any of the turtles up to this point, you can rescue one of them by following this side street and entering the building to the right. Otherwise, just follow this path along the bottom of the map, ignoring all the side streets until you get to the right hand side. This will pretty much take you all the way to the end of the stage. I'm not sure who this boss is supposed to be, but I like to think that it's Slash, followed by Flying Robot Slash. The scroll weapon makes pretty short work of both forms. Stage 4's map is made up of about a dozen walled off areas that you progress through by way of these underground tunnels, conveniently numbered 1 through 17. There are a few different paths to take, but all of them funnel you towards the end of the stage. New in this area are these fire pits, one of the few instant death hazards in the game. In the large area in the center of the map, you can rescue another fallen turtle in the tunnel to the far right. If you continue along this route, you can find another scroll weapon, but then you have to make this jump, which is just like the obnoxious jump in the dam level, except now there's lava under it. Whether or not you detour to Tunnel 13, I recommend actually using Tunnel 12 to move forward, which ends with a pizza right by the exit that you can respawn as needed, and also leads to a much safer jump across a fire pit. Stage 5 is where that luck that I mentioned earlier comes into play. This map has only 5 stages. These 2 buildings, which I don't think are worth visiting, and 3 caverns. The Technodrome is in one of the caverns. It seems like it's more likely to appear in the cave at the bottom of the map, but it's always worth checking this first cave, as it's the easiest of the 3. If fortune is on your side, you'll find the Technodrome in the first cave you look in. If it isn't there, you'll have to make your way back to the surface and keep looking. These caves are filled with some of the toughest enemies seen yet, so unfavorable luck may just cost you the game. When you find it, the Technodrome itself isn't nearly as difficult as it looks. Every piece of it can be destroyed, so if you're well stocked on scrolls, you can take out the front arm, the 2 cannons, and the foot soldier dispensing hatch pretty quickly. Alternately, you can wait for the electricity to go away, and then rush in and bust it up the old-fashioned way. Once the path is clear, you can focus on destroying the eye. Inside the Technodrome, you'll come to a hallway where you are given a choice between 2 paths. There is another opportunity to rescue a captured turtle by taking the lower route, but the upper path is a bit easier to get through, and it also leads to a scroll and a full pizza. This hallway is the final kick in the balls to anyone who has made it this far. All but one of my attempts to beat this game have ended here, and it's in preparation for this area in particular that I recommend collecting all the scrolls you can. These flying turtle hunter enemies do a ton of damage, but if you duck under them, you can outrun them when they fly over you. This strategy stops working once the hallway begins narrowing, so equip whatever sub-weapon you have and just start spamming it. Now this is actually the first time that I had ever made it this far. I had a good strategy going with the scrolls, and then I got screwed over by a random weapon drop. I imagine that the Shredder battle would have been easier if I'd managed to hang on to my scrolls, but I think I did well enough without it, especially considering that this was the first and, to date, only time that I had ever made it here. Again, what's happening here? Are they saying that Shredder's magic is what was keeping Splinter in his rat form? I don't know, it's kind of weird. If you were to ask me what my favorite Ninja Turtles game is, I'd probably give the same answer as most people. The arcade game. But honestly, the original NES game would be a close second. It has its flaws, sure, but that doesn't make it a cowabunga piece of dog shit. These flaws make it a little tricky to rate its difficulty. On one hand, the bulk of this game is far easier than any part of Contra or Silver Surfer. But whereas I would consider those games to be hard but fair, I would say that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the exact opposite. When you die in Contra, it's almost certainly your fault. I wouldn't say the same about a death in Ninja Turtles. That being said, Ninja Turtles is an awesome game in spite of its less than fair difficulty. Konami had a good thing going here. As much as I like the arcade-style beat-em-ups, I wish that they had continued with this formula for a bit instead of rehashing the format of the arcade game over and over and over again. With its varied gameplay, excellent graphics, and fantastic soundtrack, Ninja Turtles remains a game that's absolutely worth playing, even if you never finish it. That's okay, I think I have another Ninja Turtles game that you might find easier. Plus, it's one we can play together. Dude, it's your turn. Are you gonna go?